Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Christian's POV. Alex, I mumbled into the darkness. A faint groan was his only response, just enough to let me know he'd heard me. That annoying vibration was back again, buzzing far too close to my head. Alex, I said louder, giving him a gentle squeeze. He shifted against me, his breath warm against my chest. Alex, I drew his name out, louder this time. The vibrations persisted. What? He murmured, his lips brushing my skin as he spoke. Your alarm is going off, I groaned. Alex sighed. Christian, my alarm's on the bedside table. That's your phone ringing. His words were muffled and half asleep, but he punctuated them with a few soft kisses against my chest that made me nearly forget what I was even talking about. The vibrations started again. I fumbled under the pillow until I found my phone and, without meaning to, answered the call. Brad's voice came through immediately. Well, that was a warm hello, Brad teased, sounding just as tired as I felt. It's not even 6 in the morning, I grumbled. In the background, I heard Joan's voice. That told me enough. Sounds like you have company, I muttered. Don't even start, Brad snapped, his morning patience clearly non-existent. Why are you calling at this hour? I asked. Alex groaned beneath me, echoing my thoughts. Mother just messaged. She wants us at the house, Brad explained. You've got to be kidding, I said at the same time Joan did. Would I wake everyone up if I wasn't serious? Brad countered. Then I heard him excuse himself to Joan with a quick kiss. I'll be there in 40 minutes, I muttered before hanging up. Alex stirred again. That was Brad. Yeah. Mother wants me at the house. I sighed, checking the time. 5:47 a.m. It's okay, Alex murmured, untangling himself slowly. Will you be back this morning? I paused. Between this and work, and later our appointment with Roslyn as assistant, I doubted I'd return before evening. I don't think I'll make it back until tonight, I admitted softly, pressing a kiss to his forehead before pulling myself away. Leaving him in the mornings was always the hardest part. By the time I reached my parents' house, I was still half asleep. Brad was curled up on the couch in his pajamas, looking as miserable as I felt. I swear, in a couple of years I'm changing my number and moving countries, he muttered. Take me with you, I said, flopping down beside him. Mother entered the room dressed in workout gear, bright-eyed and far too energetic for the hour. You both came in your nightwear? Really? It's 6 in the morning. Spare us, I muttered. You used to wake up earlier than this, she reminded me. We could do some yoga together like we used to. We were 10, Brad pointed out. And full of life, I added. Mother frowned. Don't speak that way, Christian. Even your father volunteered to join us this morning. I doubted volunteered was the right word. Sure enough, Slav stumbled in a moment later, hair tied messily, sweatpants stained, and dark circles under his eyes. Anna, you're the love of my life, he began dramatically, but even I can say with certainty this is ridiculous. Mother only smiled tightly and ushered us toward the fitness room. Slav set down a yoga mat with no argument, though his face said it all. I lay down the moment my mat touched the floor. Brad attempted to meditate, but I had no energy for that. Mother looked ready to scold me until Slav shook his head. Me simply being present was as much effort as she'd get. Then my father finally spoke, his voice heavy. I wanted to talk to you too about the details of my agreement with Yaakov. Some additional terms were decided. My chest tightened at his words. Yaakov now owns a minority share of my research, he explained. His work accelerated our progress. In exchange, we agreed Christian would marry his daughter. If this marriage takes place, Yaakov will forfeit his remaining shares, giving me full control. If it doesn't, I lose half my shares, putting him in control. I sat up straight, my heart sinking. This wasn't just business. It was personal, binding, and unavoidable. Christian's POV. The look I gave Slav wasn't exactly respectful, I knew that much. You agreed to what? Brad spoke up before I could, asking the very question burning in my mind. Slav sighed, his voice heavy. Listen, you can see the state I'm in. I'm not taking this lightly. I know I made a mistake, believe me, I'm well aware. But there's no way I plan on actually handing Christian's future over, no matter the consequences. Would I like to find some loophole in this agreement so I don't lose half of my life's work to that man? And I'm still working on it. He leaned forward into a stretch, folding his chest against his legs. For a man who complained about his back and knees almost daily, he was surprisingly flexible. Clearly, Mother had been dragging him into yoga sessions again. His words gave me only partial comfort. While I didn't truly believe he'd go through with such an arrangement, I couldn't ignore the fact that, technically, he already had. I know you're angry. You have every right to be, Slav continued. At the time, I truly believed you were on the path to marrying Bernadette. Bridget, Brad corrected flatly. Bridge, I added. Whatever her name is, Slav muttered. However foolish I was, I didn't see this coming. I stayed silent, letting the sound of everyone's steady breathing fill the room as they stretched. If I was honest, there was plenty of blame to go around. Slav, of course, for making the deal in the first place. Mother, for feeding his belief that I'd ever marry Bridget. And me, for allowing that relationship to linger longer than it should have. I hadn't promised marriage, but I hadn't exactly worked to end things either. She'd been one of my longer relationships, after all. Slav straightened again, exhaling deeply. Mother and Brad mirrored him, pushing themselves upright with calm, practiced movements. I sat cross-legged, unwilling to join in their meditative act. I was here for answers, not inner peace. You'll be the first to know when I figure something out, Slav said at last. I'll also send Brad a copy of all the documents, so you both can review them. Brad nodded without looking up, stretching his arms behind him. Everyone in this family seemed unnervingly flexible, except me. So, we just wait? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. I'll work on this until the very last possible moment. Even if you have to say, I don't, at the altar, Slav replied. Yeah, I'd prefer if it never got that far. I shot back immediately. I wanted this solved long before Roslana could even choose flower arrangements. Later, Brad dropped a heavy stack of documents onto my desk with a thud. This paperwork is extensive, he muttered. Have you looked through it yet? I asked, rubbing my temples. I wasn't sure if it was 10 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon anymore. Time had lost all meaning. Somehow, we'd both managed to put on work clothes after the chaos of the morning. Personally, I'd been tempted to show up in pajamas and call it a day. Who would dare challenge me? Well, other than my parents. No, not yet, Brad admitted as he sank into the visitor chair. Today has been non-stop. I figured I'd catch you here before you disappeared into another conference call. That sounds about right, I muttered. 5 calls already and counting. My door hadn't opened until Brad walked in, which meant my staff knew better than to interrupt. I tried brainstorming while working on another project, Brad continued. But I couldn't think of much worth pursuing. There's always the idea of Roslana calling it off herself, but if she wanted to, she probably would have by now. I sighed, nodding. Yeah. Nothing looks promising. I even thought about I stopped myself before finishing the reckless thought aloud. But Brad caught the slip, and his expression shifted. Serious. Cautionary. Don't joke about things like that, he said quietly. I wasn't serious, I replied quickly, though my smile faded. Over the years, I'd said plenty of outrageous things around Brad, but his mood now was different. What's wrong? He hesitated before finally answering. I've been doing some digging. On Yaakov? I asked. He nodded. Nothing that raises immediate red flags, but something feels off. He's tied to several registered companies, but there's little to no information about them. What do you mean? I leaned forward, watching him closely. Slav always mentioned Yaakov, but I never realized how much influence he already had over the research. When Slav said Yaakov had been funding a large part of it, I started looking deeper. And the numbers don't quite add up. Brad's tone made my focus sharpen. Most of his wealth is supposedly in shares and media projects. But there are gaps, dead ends, strange figures that don't align with his business work. I've compared them with Slav's financial reports, and the numbers look off. My brows furrowed as the pieces clicked together. Are you saying Yakov could be? Stop, Brad cut in firmly. His eyes locked on mine. I'm saying I don't know this man as well as I thought. And I'm not sure Slav does either. Which means we need to move carefully. Very carefully. And Christian, he lowered his voice. Never say things like that outside these walls again. Alex's POV. I checked my GPS for the third time that night, just to be sure. This was the address. Exactly where I was supposed to be. And yet, it wasn't what I had expected. Music thundered from a venue called Rouge, spilling out into the street in pulsing waves. I had parked my Prius a block away, sliding into the only open meter I could find. I was about to check my GPS again when something else caught my attention. More specifically, someone else. A sleek black SUV had pulled up just ahead, one I immediately recognized as belonging to the company. Two people stepped out. The first was Christian. I'd know his figure anywhere. The second was a woman whose features I remembered from earlier that week in his office, Roslana. She was striking in every sense of the word. Her dress glittered with sequins, hugging her frame perfectly. Long, golden blonde hair fell over her bare shoulders, and her sharp eyeliner framed eyes that seemed almost too piercing to hold. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Alex, Christian called, waving me over. His voice jolted me back to reality. I fumbled for my phone and keys, trying not to stare as I got out of the car. Roslana smiled warmly when I approached, instantly softening the nervous flutter in my chest. Still, compared to her dazzling presence and Christian's ever-perfect suit, I felt more than a little underdressed. Standing beside them was like being caught in someone else's world. Hello, Alex. It's wonderful to finally meet you, Roslana said, extending her hand. Her touch was cool against my clammy palm. It sounds like the band has already started. Would it be all right if we went in? Her accent was thick, elegant. For a moment I didn't even process her words. I was too distracted by her smile. Finally, I managed to nod. Yes, of course. Thank you. That seemed to satisfy her. With practiced grace, she held the door open, and the three of us stepped into the venue. The inside was packed, shoulder to shoulder, wall to wall. I nearly stumbled into the back of someone before Christian caught my arm and pulled me closer. Careful, he mouthed. I nodded, thankful, as the music surged around us. The band on stage had a glowing logo I couldn't read, but their sound, raw indie rock, filled the room with energy. It wasn't my usual style, but it fit the atmosphere perfectly. My eyes flicked toward the bar on the far right. Instinct tugged at me. I had always felt out of place in places like this without a drink in my hand. But I quickly reminded myself, this wasn't about me. Tonight was business, even if being with Christian made it feel like anything but. Would you like something to drink? A voice said suddenly at my ear. I turned too quickly, startled, only to find Roslana standing closer than she had all evening. Her beauty up close was even more arresting, each feature impossibly balanced. But there was something in her gaze, a sharpness that unsettled me, reminding me of Yakov. I'm fine, thank you, I said quickly, though polite. She studied me a second longer before smiling. No problem. I'll grab one for myself. With that, she vanished into the crowd near the bar. Before I could wonder where Christian had gone, another voice came at my side. Here. I spun, almost colliding with two cups in Christian's hands. Jumpy tonight, he teased, handing me one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. It's fine, I said, though my hands froze when I saw the drink. The dark liquid stirred an old memory I tried hard to avoid. Oh, Christian, I don't. It's just Coke, he said with a grin. No extras. The words, paired with that grin, made me blush as memories of New York flickered at the edges of my mind. Some I wished to forget, others I hoped I never would. Thank you, I murmured, though the music nearly swallowed my words. Come on, Christian leaned closer. Let's find a quieter spot. I nodded, following his lead. His hand rested gently on my back as he guided me through the dense crowd. Ahead, stairs led to a smaller, more secluded upper level. I hesitated. What about Roslana? Christian gestured across the room. Through the mass of people, I spotted her near the bar, speaking animatedly with another woman. The stranger had long dark hair and wore a sleek black dress, simple but elegant enough to draw attention even in this place. I squinted, trying to make out more, but Christian urged me forward. "Let's go find a spot up there before the next band starts," he said with a small smile. "I'm going deaf down here." Alex's POV. As soon as Christian and I reached the top of the steps, we were stopped by a very large man. I had no idea where he had come from. It felt like he appeared out of thin air. For a split second, I felt like I was in a video game, facing a gatekeeper before moving on to the next quest. Unfortunately, this man didn't seem interested in giving us clues or treasures. "You can't be up here. Reserved seating only," he said firmly. From the way he blocked us, you'd think he was guarding something priceless. Before I could say anything, Christian stepped smoothly in front of me. Instead of arguing, he pulled out his wallet and handed the man a couple $100. Without hesitation, the guard pocketed the cash and stepped aside. Christian took my hand and guided me further into the lounge. I wanted to ask if it was really worth the money he just slipped away, but then I remembered who I was with. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. This floor was far better. Only a dozen people lingered here, most of them more interested in their hookah or phones than the music. Christian led us to a quieter corner with plush black seating, tucked away from the rest. I sank gratefully into the leather couch, clutching my Coke. Christian set both our cups on the table and leaned back with a sigh. "Finally, I can breathe again," he muttered, giving me a small smile. "It's unbelievably crowded downstairs," I agreed. I had no idea this place would be like that. What exactly are we doing here, anyway? Christian stretched his legs, then scooted closer to me. "Roslana mentioned something about scouting bands, some kind of competition, I think," she explained on the way, but honestly, I wasn't paying much attention. I smiled faintly. That sounded like him. The dim lights barely lit the room, but it didn't matter. I could still see Christian's eyes clear as day. And that was enough to make my chest tighten. Still, the thought of him and Roslana riding here together lingered in the back of my mind. Sharing the car, sharing conversation? I had to remind myself not to overthink. The next band had already taken the stage, their sound reverberating through the walls. Oddly enough, it wasn't bad. Roslana clearly had good taste. Christian slid an arm around me, pulling me closer. I leaned against him, letting the music vibrate through us. Our fingers intertwined naturally, and he absent-mindedly traced circles on my wrist with his thumb. My skin tingled at the touch. His eyes were closed now, as if soaking in every note. "Do you know how many bands are playing tonight?" I asked, half expecting he hadn't listened. As predicted, he shook his head. "No idea. I'm sure she told me, but I wasn't paying attention. Either way, I don't think we'll be here too late. She said she'd let us know when it was time to go." I nodded, nuzzling against his shoulder. Just then, the music shifted. A slow, melodic song filled the venue, soft enough that people stopped talking and simply listened. To my surprise, a few couples nearby stood and began to slow dance. I froze. Part of me wanted Christian to notice, wanted him to ask me. The other part dreaded it. I had 2 left feet, and the thought of tripping over him was almost as terrifying as the thought of saying no. "I know this might not be the time or place," Christian said suddenly, his voice low, "but would you care to dance?" My heart nearly stopped. His thumb stilled against my wrist as his eyes opened, waiting for my answer. The word caught in my throat. Before I could fumble, Christian followed my gaze toward the other couples and smiled. "Well, look at that. Seems I wasn't the only one with the idea." He stood, extending his hand toward me in a playful, old-fashioned gesture. "May I have this dance?" I could feel my heart racing. Somehow, I managed a calm reply. "Most certainly." He pulled me to my feet and guided me into position. His hand rested lightly at my waist, while the other held mine firmly. I placed my free hand on his shoulder, praying I wouldn't embarrass myself. Christian began to sway us in time with the music. Steady, simple, easy to follow. Each time I faltered, he steadied us effortlessly. Gradually, I relaxed, leaning into the warmth of his embrace. When he drew me closer, I rested my head against his chest. Through the fabric of his shirt, I could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, grounding me in the moment. He held me tighter as the melody lingered, and for a few precious minutes, it felt like the entire world had gone quiet. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. I felt him stiffen as he glanced at the screen. His expression told me everything. "I'm sorry, love," he whispered. "It looks like our night out has come to an end." Christian's POV. Roslana seemed to be in good spirits as we stepped out of the venue together. Her driver, who had waited patiently for us all evening, pulled the car around. Alex said his polite goodbyes to both of us, his professionalism as steady as ever. It never failed to make me smile. Alex really was one of the few professional constants in the chaos of Ivanov Corp. He started toward his car, but paused when he noticed I was following. He hesitated, turning back to me. "I thought you were going to ride back with Roslana to the office?" I shook my head. "No. I told the driver to take her home. I'd much rather spend the rest of the night with you." His cheeks flushed instantly, and I couldn't help but feel a swell of warmth at the sight. Technically, I still had paperwork waiting on my desk, documents Brad had reminded me about earlier, but at that moment, none of it mattered. I'd had a wonderful evening with my boyfriend, and I wasn't ready for it to end. Would it be all right if I stopped by my place for a few essentials first? Alex asked as he unlocked his little car. I raised a brow. "I thought you were going home tonight?" I was. Before, his words trailed off, but the meaning was clear. "Then let's go home," I said firmly. "Alex, the speed limit is 55 here," I pointed out a little while later as we drove. "Christian, I'm going 50, he muttered, shooting me a quick glare before focusing back on the road. "Exactly," I teased. "That's 5 under." He grumbled something under his breath, but I caught the small smile tugging at his lips. The banter was comforting. Soon enough, we pulled into his building. Inside the elevator, I didn't wait for the doors to close before leaning in to kiss him. His lips were soft, so inviting, but I pulled back before either of us got carried away. "You were amazing tonight," I whispered. "It was nothing really," he said shyly, but I shook my head. "This situation is bigger than either of us. And I need you to know how much I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done." The elevator dinged before he could answer. He stepped out first and I followed, catching the smile that lingered on his lips. "You make me feel appreciated too," he said softly. "But I'm not the only one in this. You and Roslana both have your own feelings about it too." I gave him a reassuring smile. "Alex, if you were in my shoes, if someone tried to push you into marrying another person, you'd be upset too. So don't ever feel guilty for how you feel. You're more than justified." His face flushed again, and he broke eye contact, flustered. I resisted the urge to kiss him right then and there, though the thought was tempting. Yes, the situation was messy. And yes, I would rather spend my time focusing on Alex than dealing with Yaakov and contracts. But there was no use dwelling on frustration. I'd put my energy into finding a solution, not into the unfairness of it all. When we reached his apartment, Alex slipped off his shoes and set his things aside. The place was a little chilly, which made the thought of cuddling even more appealing. Without warning, I scooped him up in my arms. His surprised yelp made me laugh, though he didn't resist. He wrapped his arms around my shoulders and grinned. "Hi," I said, smiling at those deep brown eyes. "Hi," he replied, his grin forming the little smile lines I loved tracing with my fingers. He leaned in for a quick kiss, and I felt that familiar rush of not wanting to let go. Carrying him into his bedroom, I set him down gently, only to notice something unexpected on his bed. "And who's this little guy?" I asked, spotting the stuffed teddy bear. Alex froze. In an instant he darted forward, scooping up the bear. It's just a silly present from a long time ago." "Really stupid," he stammered, trying to shove it into a drawer. I caught his hand before he could. Hey, slow down, I said gently. His hands were trembling slightly as he clutched the bear. The way it had been placed neatly on the bed told me it was more than just an object. And his reaction confirmed it. There's nothing stupid about keeping something that means something to you, I told him softly. The only mistake would be feeling ashamed of it. May I? I gestured toward the bear. After a pause, Alex reluctantly handed it to me. It was light brown, a little worn but soft, with a small patch on one arm where it had been repaired. Does he, or she, have a name? I asked. Alex hesitated, then finally admitted, Mr. Whiskers. I smiled, setting the bear carefully back where it belonged. Well, I vowed to never share a bed with anyone but you, but I suppose I can make an exception for one very special Mr. Whiskers. Alex's lips curved into a shy smile before he leaned in and kissed me. Not a quick peck, not a rushed or heated kiss. This one was long and sweet, filled with unspoken emotion. I tangled my fingers in his hair, pulling him closer, until he finally pulled away with a soft grin. Thank you, he whispered. There's no need to thank me, I replied. But I would love to hear the story of how Mr. Whiskers came into your life, if you're comfortable sharing it. Alex ducked his head, flustered again. Do you talk to him about me? I teased gently. His pause was enough to make me chuckle, and then he gave me a small nod. Then I have to know more, I insisted with a smile. It's only fair. If Mr. Whiskers knows all about me, I should know a little about him too. Alex laughed softly, his walls slowly lowering again. And in that moment, I knew anything that mattered to him would always matter to me. Alex's POV. Well, Mr. Whiskers was a present from my father, I admitted softly. It wasn't a lie, though in truth, there wasn't much more to the story. Christian's eyes softened as he looked at me. He didn't speak, just waited patiently, holding me close as if encouraging me to continue. His hand gently massaged the back of my neck, keeping me nestled against him, just inches away from his face. It would have been easy to lean up and kiss him right then, but he wanted to hear my story. It's really just one of the last things I have from him, I said quietly. The name was his idea. It doesn't make much sense, but he looked at the bear and said, he looks like a Mr. Whiskers. I guess it just stuck. Christian smiled, and something about that smile reminded me of how much I loved him. I think Mr. Whiskers is perfect, he said warmly. Your father sounds like a man with great taste. The words brought a lump to my throat, and I blinked hard to hold back the tears. That he was, I whispered. I think he would have liked you. I couldn't know that for sure, but I felt it deeply. My father valued people who cared for their family, who showed up for the ones they loved. He hadn't always been the most progressive, but his love for me had outweighed everything else. And I wished, more than anything, that he was still here to see this, see me. For once, thinking about him didn't hurt in the same way it usually did. Talking about him with Christian made it different. Maybe because for once, I could remember my father's love without reliving all the pain that came after he was gone. That night, Christian just held me. I had started the evening thinking of intimacy in a physical way, but what we shared was something deeper, an intimacy that came from being completely seen and understood. His fingers threaded through my hair, his shirt quietly absorbing my tears whenever the waves of grief came. Whenever I tried to apologize, he would hush me gently, pressing me closer, reminding me I didn't need to be sorry. He asked about everything, my happiest memories, my hardest ones. And though I realized I didn't have nearly as many stories about my father as I wished, I clung tightly to the ones I did. I would have given anything for one more moment with him, one more memory. Christian shared some of his own stories, too. At one point, he admitted he'd collected Russian nesting dolls as a child. It caught me off guard, I had no idea. But as he described them, I just felt myself loving him even more. It was the little things like that, the quiet details, that made him who he was. And I realized that's what makes a real relationship, showing someone you care, even when the bigger problems feel overwhelming. Eventually, his steady touch lulled me to sleep. I didn't know when that happened, or even how we made it home, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the present moment, being here with him. The next morning, I woke to find a note on my nightstand instead of Christian. I wasn't surprised, he had never planned to stay overnight, and I knew the work waiting for him was endless. Still, just the thought of how much he'd put off for me made my heart ache in the best way. He had never once chosen work over me. And that made me wonder if I was doing enough to make him feel as appreciated as he made me feel. I picked up the note. His handwriting was messy, like he'd been half asleep when he wrote it. "Good morning, love. Sorry I had to leave like this again. I promise I'll try to stay longer next time. Last night was, well, let's just say I can't wait to show you how much it meant to me. You looked far too peaceful to wake. Anyway, it's the weekend now, and we don't have plans until next week. Take today for yourself, rest, do nothing or anything you'd like. I'll try to stop by Sunday before the work week starts again. Breakfast is on the way. Use this time to recharge." The last line made my stomach flutter. Whether from happiness or hunger, I wasn't sure. Probably both. I placed the note back on the nightstand, deciding I'd save it with the others in my journal. I'd even kept the one from our trip to New York. Christian was right. The weeks ahead would be wild. This weekend, I needed to take care of myself. And after last night, I felt ready to do something I'd been putting off for too long. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized long ago but never found the courage to call. My heart pounded as the line clicked. "Thank you for calling the Regional Treatment Facility. How may I assist you?" A cheerful voice greeted. I almost hung up. Almost. But I made myself stay on the line. "Good morning," I said, my tone polite but unsteady. "I'd like to be connected with one of your patients. Vanessa Hamilton. She's my mother." Alex's POV. "Hello." I pressed the phone tightly to my ear, frozen, unable to speak. "Alex? Is that you?" I knew that voice instantly. But it had been years since I'd heard it sound this way, clear, steady, almost alive. For a moment, it was like I was hearing my mum's voice from 15 years ago, before everything fell apart. "Mum." My voice cracked. "Hi," she said simply. Somehow, I could feel her smile through the line. My heart clenched, and a familiar sting returned to my eyes. "It's me, Mum. It's me." "Hi," I croaked again, shakier this time. How are you?" There was a pause. Then she let out a soft laugh. "I'm good. Truly good. And it's been a long time since I could say that honestly. It still feels a little strange to admit." Tears pooled, burning hot. I struggled to hold my voice steady. That's really good." I stopped, overcome. "I'm so sorry I haven't called or come to see you." Shoo, Alex. "It's all right," she said firmly. "You don't need to apologize for that. I wasn't ready for you to see me back then. You didn't deserve to see me at my worst." Her words cut through me, and tears slipped freely down my cheeks. I remembered the withdrawal phases, the chaos, the way it had hollowed her out. And as painful as it was, I realized I was grateful she had spared me that this time. "I'm sorry you had to go through that alone," I whispered. "I didn't," she said softly. "Not here. This facility, it's unlike anything I imagined. The program is tough, but it works. The first nights were hard. Really hard." Her voice wavered, breaking slightly, and I felt another wave of tears. I had night terrors. The nurses stayed with me, sometimes all night. Some read to me, others told me about their families. I was never truly alone. Christian made sure of that. He's been very involved. I clapped a hand over the receiver, stifling my sob. Somehow, I almost missed the last part. "Yes?" I asked carefully. "Yes." He's followed every progress report. He phones in every few days, checking on me. Even when I said terrible things during the withdrawal, things I regret, he never hung up. Not once. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "He never told me that," I whispered. "I think he wanted you to reach out on your own," she said. "But I know why he did it. I saw what some of these treatments cost. It's staggering. I told Christian I'll work until it's paid back." "I could help," I offered instantly, though I knew she couldn't possibly repay it herself. "No, Alex," she said firmly. I've lost so much already, but I need to hold on to what dignity I have left. Don't take that from me. I've taken enough from you. My tears wouldn't stop. I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Enough about me, she said gently. These calls are limited. Let's talk about this Christian fellow, because he's all I hear about from him. If it were anyone else, I'd have stopped taking his calls by now. But I like hearing the updates on you. Tell me, how was Hawaii? I couldn't help but smile, wide and genuine. It was perfect. I can hear you smiling, she teased. My smile grew even bigger. And I promise he didn't make me say this, but you found someone special. Beneath that hard shell is a heart as big as I've ever seen. His care for you is real, Alex. I've seen it in the way he's looked after me too. He truly wants to protect your peace. I was speechless, but somehow managed. He really is something. Do you love him? My mother asked quietly. The answer came without hesitation. Yes. I could feel her smile as clearly as if she were standing in front of me. That makes me so happy. So happy. She paused, her voice turning serious. I could sit here and say I'm sorry for the past, but the truth is, I wasn't fully aware for most of it. An apology wouldn't be enough. You deserve more than words. So instead, I'll show you through action. She took a breath before continuing. That's why I've decided to extend my stay here. Part inpatient, part outpatient. I'm working towards steady jobs once I'm out. Christian has offered guidance, but I'll do the work myself. I don't have the money or the time to fail twice. I'm going to make this count. What do you think, baby? It's longer than planned, but... It's one of the best things you've ever told me, I interrupted, letting my tears flow freely. And for the first time in years, I felt a fragile but real hope. Christian's POV. So, you and Joan. I raised an eyebrow at Brad, grinning. You two seem to be getting cozy, or should I say, sounded cozy on that phone call a few days ago. Brad's hand froze mid-motion. Instead of tossing the salad like he'd intended, he threw the spoon at me. It flew faster than I expected and nicked my arm as I failed to dodge it. Can you please be quiet? He hissed, lowering his voice. She's in the shower right now. I don't want her hearing you. I smirked, clearly amused. Don't worry, I won't stay long. I was just stopping by before running a few errands. Nathaniel wanted me to replace some things in the kitchen, and honestly, I've been neglecting a few essentials myself. Normally, I'd have my assistant handle tasks like that. But considering my assistant was now also my boyfriend, sending him to buy my toothpaste and body wash felt odd. I was also thinking of stopping by Mum and Dad's, I added, dropping my voice. Not that I want to, but checking in is the least I can do. Have you made any progress on what we talked about? Brad went back to slicing tomatoes, his movements calm and deliberate. Cooking was his meditation, something he never rushed. I've hit a bit of a wall, he admitted quietly. But I'll figure it out. For now, let's keep it between us. We don't have enough information yet. I'm not making accusations until I'm sure. I gave a short nod. Even though his eyes never left the cutting board, I knew he noticed. It was safe to say I had absolutely no idea what I was doing in that target. Nathaniel, you said this order was already placed, right? I grumbled into the phone. Yes, Christian. Nathaniel sighed for what sounded like the 10th time. Go to customer service at the front of the store. Where you now? Don't tell me you're still wandering near women's clothing. I glanced around at the shelves of dishware and small appliances. I'm in some kind of kitchen section. I'm standing in line with a cashier named Jake who keeps asking to scan items I don't even have. Nathaniel sighed again. That's the checkout lane. You need to leave that line and go to customer service. It's by the Starbucks. Why is there even a Starbucks in here? I muttered. This place is already a labyrinth. I've been lost at least 10 times. And to think I almost sent you to Walmart, Nathaniel murmured. Just head to customer service. Show your ID and the order number I sent you. Fine, I grumbled, hanging up. When Jake opened his mouth again, I cut him off before he could finish. Save it, kid, I muttered, snatching my ID and heading toward what felt like my 100th line of the day. By the time I pulled into my parents' estate, the sun had already set. I refused to admit how long the errands took. The list Nathaniel gave my assistants was apparently pulled from half the stores in the city. By the end, I gave up on my usual brand of toothpaste and settled for whatever I could grab fastest. "We were expecting you 2 hours ago," my mother greeted as she opened the door herself, something she rarely did. I got sidetracked, I admitted, stepping inside. The house was dimly lit except for the glow from the living room. I half expected to find Slav on the couch in his wine-stained sweatpants, wallowing like before, but instead, only a book lay there. "Where's Slav?" I asked. "In his study," my mother replied, settling onto the couch with her wine and flipping open the book. That was my cue to move on. I made my way down the long halls until I reached Slav's office. The man sitting behind the desk looked every bit himself. Slicked hair, crisp suit, sharp eyes. And yet, I couldn't shake the image of the rumpled version of him burned into my mind. "Looks like you cleaned up," I remarked as I stepped inside. "Watch it," he warned, but I just raised an eyebrow. Not exactly what I'd expect from someone who practically handed his son's future away like it was nothing. We locked eyes in silence for a moment before he gestured for me to sit. "Did you come here to add to my stress?" he asked. As tempting as that would be, no. Slav didn't look convinced, but I didn't care. He had pulled himself together again, and I no longer felt pity. "I came for a few reasons," I continued. "One was just to make sure you're still breathing. Clearly you are. The other is something we probably should have discussed years ago. Maybe my pride stopped me then, but not now." He leaned back, expression unreadable. "What is it, Christian?" I drew in a breath. "I want to talk about Brad's role in Ivanov Corp. And the possibility of giving him the position he deserves." Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.